Hello, everyone, and welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Jacob, how are you doing today?
Really well, thank you, and thanks so much for having me here.
Absolutely. Please introduce yourself and the name of your business.
So my name is Jacob McGill, and the organization that I'm in charge of is 80/20 Media.
Awesome. We look forward to learning more about 80/20 and how you're helping people out there in the world. But we want to learn a little bit more about your journey. And we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your story, Jacob.
For sure. So, to kind of cut to the chase a little bit, I had a pretty normal, happy, healthy, rural childhood. And if you fast forward a bit, I'm what we call a 1%er because I got to have my midlife crisis when I was 17. And what I mean by that is I died in the ditch next to a car accident. I got airlifted to ICU. I got all the trappings of the coma, the multiple surgeries, months in a hospital bed, like everything except for the beard that they grow on the TV movies.
Man, that's an interesting thing. Glad to hear that you were able to make it through that particular experience. What are some of those things that you changed?
The medical system is incredible at performing miracles, right? They have life-saving capacities that I can't say I completely understand, but I wouldn't be here to talk to you about it if they didn't have those capabilities. But at the time that I was in and out of the hospital, there's a bit of a drop off between saving your life and your quality of life. And I'm not going to pretend I got my head on straight right when I was 17. It honestly took me until my early 20s to kind of shake off the accident. And I went back, finished the semester of high school that I had missed. I then went and continued with my post-secondary. I was getting my music degree when I started noticing on the arts campus the dancers and their ability to move and what was going on with their bodies. And I kind of looked over there and I looked over here and looked over there and looked over here, and it's like, there's a big difference. There's a gap here. And that put me on pretty much a 10-year journey. That was the time that I was concentrated in study, in learning, and essentially I built a program that still runs for 25 years now. It's called the 100-Year Plan. It became a brick and mortar business that I had for 6 years. It falls under this umbrella of clinical rehabilitation. And during that time, I got papered up in 9 different modalities, because I just kept on seeking things out until I'd reversed all the diagnoses that I'd been given. Now, there's one benefit about a car accident and a coma and that kind of stuff. You don't hear those beginning stages of diagnoses. It was my parents who were like, he might not live, he might not walk, he might not wake up, like all that stuff passed right by me, right? But, I do remember that moment of being in the hospital and asking the surgeon, I'm like, why doesn't my arm go higher than this? He's like, shoulder surgery. Like, what do you expect? And, that was one of those first times in my life where I started questioning the idea that you're just supposed to live with it, that this is the way things are. And so I built my clinic into a lab. I just kept on collecting modalities. I kept on practicing stuff and figuring out how it fit together until I got pretty close to my 10,000 hours. But also at that time, I was running a business where I was comfortable saying, and I still do, permanent pain relief guaranteed or your money back. And it's based on some very simple processes. And once you understand those things, and this was the lab part of it, they actually set you or the client free. When you get all the principles yourself, you have a system that works for you and you don't have to rely on the practitioner. And that's what I was creating, was autonomy. Now, that had its own consequences. And in the 6 years that I had a front end and a front door and administration staff and all that kind of stuff, the business kept on growing and growing. And in the last 3 years, I had a 3-month wait list. People were lined up out the door. I had doctors coming to see me. And unfortunately for me, I had lawyers and insurance companies sending me clients and writing the checks. And that's when I discovered burnout for the first time in my life. Because I had to look people in the eye and hear them say, I can't get better. I need to go in to court 18 months from now, limping, wounded, broken, hurt, or I won't get my settlement check. And it was a real messed up situation mentally. And I just felt like Sisyphus, like I was just putting in this extreme effort every single day to get no result, which is completely the opposite of everything I built. And so, that was the first time that I really burned the ships. I just got to a point one day, one time where I'm like, I can't take this anymore. And I shut the whole thing down. I said, I have to step back from this. Tired of this definition of insanity thing. I'm going to go figure this out. And that's when I made the commitment to move the whole practice online.
Gotcha. Now, I do want to learn a little bit more about that particular business. Now, I understand your circumstances is what led you to learning more about healing. Inside of that particular practice, was it more of mental? Was it PT? Was it a specific homeopathic ingredient thing? What was it? What was it that you were able to help people overcome not being able to heal?
And, the tongue-in-cheek answer is yes. Right? I'm not joking about 9 modalities, but if you think about it, and this is part of the 100-year plan, it's this set of equilateral triangles, and each one just makes sense. Like air goes before water, goes before food. Right? People want to diet, but a lot of people won't take responsibility for that. You have 21 breathing muscles, and 20 of them are posture muscles.
Okay.
And all of your metabolic organs are in between those muscles. So if you start breathing and moving properly, some diet issues disappear. Right? There's a type of diet that you need if you only ever sit on the couch, but there's a different type of diet, much less restrictive, if you're always up and moving. And so that's really the stuff that I learned, is how to get to the core of things, or how to treat the source instead of the symptom. And during the time that I was learning, I was fortunate enough to have a practice space inside of the oldest pharmacy in Vancouver, where PhD pharmacology worked and basically lived. The guy's life was in this place. And I learned so much from him about everything to do with supplements or whatever you can put in your mouth to positively affect your chemistry. At the same time, I went out and mastered a body of osteopathic work. I got some of the best Pilates training on the planet. I got my black belt in Aikido. I was a Reiki master at 23. I just kept grasping at things, trying to make sense of it all until I was able to weave together a net. And so it's not this or that thing that ever made me better. It's the combination of things that worked. And that's when I discovered one of my superpowers, which is seeing the big picture, seeing the patterns and processes and things, and then really being able to find the leverage. Oh, if we just do this thing and that thing, we're going to get a greater result. And that's kind of where I fell in love with the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, it sounds like you were finding the science of the system. You were taking out what that individual's situation was and then finding a solution based off of them instead of just saying, hey, this is the overall way to get it done.
And I removed the religion, and I find it just as clear in business as well, because you get all the gurus in the scroll, and you find this in the healthcare space. Right? It's like that Saturday Night Live character with Mike Myers. He's like, if it's not Scottish, it's crap. And you find these people who are married to their modality and blind to the other possibilities. And, it happens in business all the time too. People get tunnel vision about one way of doing things, and they lose all the potential leverage just by adding in other practices.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it makes sense. You're definitely trying to be solution oriented, finding that particular way to fix that process. And you were sharing that you got things going, business was coming along well. Then you start getting in there with those attorneys and lawyers, and they were trying to get you to do the opposite of what your true purpose was. So you slowed things down. What did you do after you closed up the shop?
Yeah, it was that real crucible moment that you read about in books, and the idea that somebody would say, I'm here to get better, but I can't, and this is why. I'm choosing not to.
Right.
So after, I wasn't smart enough to figure that out the first 10 times, but after enough, I said, I'm done with this. I'm going to do this online. And, Zoom had popped into being. The internet was throttling forward. And so I shut down the clinic with the fantasy that I was going to just redo everything and launch online in a matter of weeks. Started building a team around me. And through that process, I started learning the stuff. And it's not like I couldn't type or didn't know what email was, but I wasn't really technically minded at that time. So I learned my way into these systems and processes. And about 3.5 months into building the 100-year plan into the online piece, I turned to the main guy I was working with and I said, we have a service here. We mapped out a systematic process for content to capture it, to process it, distribute it, publish it. Now, that's not new nowadays. Everybody's doing this. But at that time, we had a service and it worked. We launched 80/20 Media in a week or two. And I just asked him, I'm like, do you want to do this? He said, yes. We went out, put the paperwork in place, came up with the idea, started selling, and we took on a new client every month for the next 18 months. Our team grew to around 26 people. We became a corporation pretty quick, and things were rolling. And I mean rolling. Like, we had international clients. I was doing things like flying to London to work on site with a client for 3 months, stuff like that. And we were doing organic lead generation quite successfully. But after a certain period of time, and you'll hear marketers complain about this today, we were struggling with getting the clients to follow up with the leads we were generating for them.
Yeah, that is a crazy thing, that they hire you to come in to get them business, and then when you put it in their lap, they don't do the simple thing with calling them or emailing or follow up with them. That's a weird thing.
Absolutely. And so 7 years ago, we found what were the beginnings of a tech stack that's evolved over time. And the whole idea behind it was, how do we keep painting our clients into corners? And that's really where we've evolved to now, right? Like, what we do today has changed significantly from when we started, but also when we started incorporating technology. And basically how my business operates now is incredibly simple. Every single business is leaking revenue in leads, in conversion, in sales, in onboarding, and fulfillment. And with my medical background, we diagnose first. We go in, we give your company an MRI. We're like, listen, here's where the problems are. But just like medical, you want to triage, because people will come in and be like, my knee hurts. And it's like, yes, but you're bleeding out your neck. Like, one of these things is going to kill you fast, and the other one is just annoying. So after we diagnose, then we prescribe. And in our prescription, it is a 6-month build in 2 90-day pillars. Our goal for the first 90 days is to have it pay for the entire thing, because we're solving the bleeding neck. But we use what is now called Rev Ops. And the big picture is, we reduce cost of acquisition while increasing lifetime value. And we use a tried and true methodology that's been applied to 2,000 of the top SaaS companies on the planet. Most of us will never have businesses that go into the billions, because we can't have 10,000 or 50,000 users. But I haven't found a company yet that we can't get to 10 to 20 million with these processes.
Okay. Awesome. Now, with these particular businesses, we want to try to paint the best possible picture for everyone that is watching today, so they can, really know how you're able to provide services for them. Is it one of those where it's a specific industry that you work well in, or is it agnostic? Tell us a little bit more about those ideal clients that you like to come across.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest thing that I'm finding with the greatest amount of consistency is vision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you have that founder becoming a CEO, that startup team, that company that's just been around for a decade but consistently plateauing,
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time in the mountains, if they haven't picked out this summit and committed to that goal, that's where we have to start, because it all takes effort and work. And that's one of the questions that I ask people all the time, and myself every single day. Are you climbing the right mountain?
Mm-hmm.
Because it can suck to get up to the top of this thing and be like, oh, damn, that one over there. You have to go all the way down and all the way back up.
Right, 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 right.
And so, linking yourself to a purpose-based, focus and saying, we're going to do this. And it doesn't have to be like save the world, right? It's in the model of the revenue architecture, increasing lifetime value. It can be just doing a damn great job for these people. So we help the companies figure out what that is, what they do well, how they do it the best, and how to lean into that stuff. And that makes that whole cost of acquisition a lot easier in the long run. Mm-hmm. And I'm still in the development phase of this. My company's relatively young. So we're kind of taking all verticals just to see how many we can win in at this point. And we haven't decided to narrow it down or shut anybody out
just yet. Well, I mean, that's good. You're still trying to figure it out. One of the things that I like to do is try to help people really, really understand. And for businesses, like you mentioned, it's hard for them to see down the road. I've worked with a lot of business owners, and they're so deep into running the business, they don't work on the business. So can you share with us, how do you help a business owner to see down the road? Because I know that has to be one of your biggest challenges, of getting them to understand where they want to go, because they may be great at whatever craft it is, but they don't know where they want to sit in the business. How do you help them overcome that challenge of vision?
Yeah, perfect question. So it goes back to the same way that I got such a high success rate in the healthcare space. It's about having a team, understanding if the team is already in place, and if it's lacking, you build it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did with my healthcare practice is I sent out an email every single week to every practitioner, because people would come in, they're funded by insurance, they're seeing 6 people, they're spending as much time in the car as they are on the table. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Naturopath, acupuncturist, coming to see the rehab guy, going over there to the PT. Mm-hmm. And if you point them all in the same direction, magic starts to happen. And this is one of the things that I found. All these practitioners, in and of themselves, were doing their best work, really well-intentioned, but the client was kind of being drawn and quartered because they weren't facing the same way. Mm-hmm. We find this inside of companies all the time. Right? You get the smaller size companies that we work with, we kind of focus on the 2 to 20 million. They've just brought on 2 people. They're excellent people. They were headhunted. They were pulled from a different job that they were awesome at. They come into the new place and they're like, what do I do? And they're like, do what you did at your old job. And you're lucky if 40 to 60% of that holds true in the new organization, right? The position is the same, but the role is different. So there's the people side of that, and if you give them the systems and the processes, it starts to smooth that out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the way I like to say it is that the structure starts to reveal the human holes. Mm-hmm. If you have somebody who's making their job up because they are good at it at their last one and they don't know how this one is different, and you start closing that gap, all of a sudden you get this efficiency, this efficacy, this improvement across the board. Mm-hmm. And then you get to some of the other problems that we don't necessarily fix, like the founder-led sales who has to move to CEO and the mindset shift that takes. Mm-hmm. There's other people who are experts at that. But I will give that founder the systems that frees them up to go and get that mentorship and that coaching and develop themselves, instead of just having their head down every single day. It's like that Far Side cartoon, right? With the school for the gifted and the kid just pushing against it and the door says pull right on it.
I got you. Now, with yourself, you have acquired the knowledge. You've found those 9 different ways as you were trying to, get yourself healed up, and, you're all about fixing the process. I want to ask you, how does AI assist you in making this process a little bit easier?
It's a super timely question. So we are in the 4th industrial age, like right now, today. And if you're not aware of this, it's been unfolding in front of you for around the last 18 months. And so from mechanization to automation was the last really big change, right? Like Henry Ford created these car factories and then robots started building cars. We're now transitioning from automation to cyber. And so workflows, automations, SOPs, all those processes, those things are not going away. But where AI is right now is it's like the bit that fits between the screwdriver and the screw. And you put the right piece of AI in the right place at the right time, and you get exceptional leverage. And if you've ever tried to use, a Phillips inside a Robertson or anything like that, the wrong tool or that wrong bit just creates more struggle. And so for myself, we've leaned heavily into AI. I have 8 human employees. We have 18 AI staffers.
Okay.
I've trained the bulk of them for 2 years, and 12 of them we've released to the public, available via subscription, because you can get individuals who can do tasks and a bunch of them for less than the price of a VA. And that's where AI is taking us. Production of certain things is getting incredibly cheap, but there's a real risk there too, because with AI, garbage in equals garbage out. So you have to understand the process, you have to be clear on the system, you have to really be committed to, in my opinion, enhancing that customer journey for your business. If you're not doing that, you're not serving the customer. If you're not serving the customer, you're not reducing acquisition costs and increasing lifetime value. And there's a lot of automation out there too that we've gone in and fixed because it was busy work, it was entertainment, it was built by somebody for them, not for the growth of the business. If you don't think about how you're going to scale, then you're going to scale your problems, right? If you just scale blindly. And AI has the potential, the propensity to take you really far in the wrong direction, especially because the way they're programming it now on the base level, it's very suggestive, right? Oh, should I do this for you? Oh, should I do that for you? And it'll lead you down this rabbit hole of activity, which isn't serving that primary purpose or task that you were aiming for. Now, we are starting to work into, mentioning Henry Ford earlier, the assembly line phase as well. We had these individual agents that I'm talking about, but we're now starting to build them out into assembly lines, right? Of like, hey, I have an idea. I need to build a front end funnel for it. You feed it in. The first guy figures out the offer. The next one rewrites that so it's copy for the landing page. And the next one creates social media content. The next one writes your email marketing. And that whole thing can put that stuff together, fact check, edit, and then publish. And that's where AI is going on the production of that level. But the other thing we're starting to work in now in 2 companies is we're standing up these internalized AI knowledge bases. And this is something a lot of people don't understand as well, is when you start taking your data or customer data and you start porting it out into these AI platforms, that stuff is going public, right? It becomes their data. And so, businesses that are committed to growing a business and being a part of the future where they, own their business and best practices are investing in owning their AI and keeping it inside of a box and only giving access to certain people at certain times, the same way you would with your own CRM, your own books, your own backend, like all the common sense of your business. You wouldn't dump all your passwords out there and be like, here's all the technology we're using.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. With it is on the cutting edge of what you're doing now. I think that it is a magnificent idea to have each one of those AI agents doing a particular thing inside of the assembly line as you share. One of the questions that I have for you, Jacob, is as you are training those AI agents to do their part of the assembly line, where do you see 80/20 in the future as you have those AI agents trained and going? Where is 80/20 going in the future?
So one thing about that training,
Mm-hmm.
I name them, give them headshots, and call them employees for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I'm trying to train people to think about that. You have to treat it like an employee.
Mm-hmm.
Do this, don't do that. That was a good job. Let's improve this piece. Hey, let's never do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to understand that AI is like that. It's built and designed right now to just kind of please you or appease you. And so you got to understand that sometimes if it's not properly programmed like our agents, you're just getting a yes man,
Mm-hmm.
which may not be in your best interests, right? So as you train it up, you want it to ask more questions than just say yes and do things. And that kind of process is, important in every single part of a business anyway, where with every employee or team member. We're going to get to a point soon where that stuff is evolved enough that it is more functional.
Mm-hmm.
You won't have to train an employee. You'll be able to hire one out of a can. And that's one of the places that we're reaching towards, right? We've built these employees. We're testing them out there with the public so we can come back and improve them, because we've already started building customized employees for different companies now. That's something I couldn't have said a year ago. This is where we're going.
Right.
If you look at that and the combination of that and the knowledge base, this is where you start to get a winning combination.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I have a legacy company we're doing some consulting for right now. They have 3 different offerings because they've been around for so long. They have 45,000 customers and they're at 500 million.
Okay.
They're not selling more than one product to those customers. Right? And that's because of how old and fractured and kind of built up over time their systems are. So the idea that this engine can sit there and go, this is probably what this company is going to buy next. We should have somebody from this team reach out saying, you're already doing business with us here. Can we support you there?
Mm-hmm.
And then it hands it over to a human. It says, go dig into this relationship, make this introduction to this other person who's part of the same team. Right? And so that kind of combination of AI influence and AI support into human behavior and the predictive analysis side of stuff, I think this is really where we're going to see things blow up in the next year or so. And I'm already seeing that on the front lines as well. Right? Like, about search, about intent, about retargeting.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff's going to get highly, highly customized.
Okay. Yeah, I always ask that question, especially with dealing with what you're on, because a lot of people don't understand the importance of AI, how it's really running in the background, but more importantly, how it can be an important asset to your business if you use it properly. So that's why I wanted to get an idea of where you think it will go. And I see you're trying to get those agents trained up where you don't have to go back and train them, as like if Roderick needed it, I wouldn't have to train that agent. It's already trained, not just to be a yes man, but to think and help me go along the process. Now, Jacob, with your experience early, you had that trauma situation early, you were able to overcome that by finding some of those homeopathic ways to heal yourself, created a company surrounding it, and now you are creating a cutting edge product. I'm confident you have acquired and nurtured some business skills or best practices that have helped you to continue to stay on the path of success. Do you mind sharing with us some of those best practices or business skills that some of the entrepreneurs that are watching today can add to their mix?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a little extra too. I'm currently in conversation with the admissions to a program.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have even predicted this 3 months ago, but I confirmed last Saturday that one of the clients I'm working for, the build we are doing for them may qualify as my thesis for a PhD in AI.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, even those words, PhD in AI, that didn't exist 6 months ago.
Yeah, I've never heard of that
And
one before.
so in terms of best practices, you need to keep looking towards the horizon, because 30% of the jobs that exist right now won't exist, right? AI is going to come in and sweep them away. And you need to think about that in terms of your business and your organization.
Mm-hmm.
You have some fantastic human beings in your team, right? And you can enhance a lot of their roles. Like some of my staff go to coaches that I've built for them because the coach understands the best practices of the platform. I'm like, don't ask me for help, ask it for help, because it's read every single page from the help desk. So that's the current phase. But as the 30% of jobs disappear, there's another 30% of jobs that are going to pop into existence. And so you want to be on the front end of that curve. I'm not a great surfer, but that whole idea of finding that right spot on the wave so you get carried for it instead of you're fighting with it,
Mm-hmm.
that's really the place that you want to be. And if you have that 20% time that that Google used, where all those innovations like Google Maps, Google Earth, Google Docs, Calendar, all that came from, right? Those are pet projects from staff members. They have become indispensable to us. That stuff is already sitting there, existing inside of your business in best practices, waiting to be discovered. But the fundamental thing, if you want to grow a business that survives this sea change,
Mm-hmm.
is it's always about the customer journey. I've been saying this for 7 years now, since we got into the platform-based support. The customer journey dictates the platform build. And a lot of people are given a piece of software or a tech stack or something, and they don't think, I need to teach this thing to serve my business and my people. They just try and fit their business into the boxes that we're given.
Mm-hmm.
And you can reorient that stuff. You can reorganize it. You keep servicing that customer journey. Lifetime value goes up, acquisition goes down.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is important for people to be okay with being an early adopter and making sure that they're being fluid in their business and saying, instead of saying my way is the highway. You know, I definitely appreciate you sharing that. Now, Jacob, we talked a lot about your journey. We've talked about the business AI. We've talked a lot about what you have going on in the future with your business. But now I want to talk about Jacob. So let's just say you're getting all of your agents learned up, trained up. They're going to be able to do exactly what you want. Businesses are going to accept it and utilize your services, and time and money is not an issue. What is it Jacob would do with his personal time outside of work?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question because I didn't include it in my story. Mm-hmm. But again, I got to have my midlife crisis when I was 17. I'm not pretending I had my head on straight even through my early 20s, but it taught me a lesson that I've been living ever since, which is what I call life by design. When we launched 80/20 Media, it was in the cloud. Like, I built that thing from a Chromebook because I wanted to be able to get off a plane and go, oh, my luggage is gone. Walk into a big box store, log back in and be up and running. So I'm currently at 29 countries. Mm-hmm. Some of them I've been up to 6 times. Most of them have been trips for up to 3 to 6 months because the only place I ever had a challenge was Iceland. The Wi-Fi is really spotty there. And to be on my work schedule, mm-hmm. like traveling to all these places without ever taking a vacation, I had to really think about the timing of it. In terms of, you know, day to day, week to week, that kind of stuff, I left the big city 4.5 years ago. I live in the mountains right in between 3 ski hills. Mm-hmm. I got 54 days on my ski pass this year. I do the same thing every year. I spend a similar amount of time hiking in lakes, up and down mountains, you know, go for bike rides after work, like whatever I can do to facilitate that quality of life, but also get me into this space where, for me, it's moving meditation. Like, sitting still doesn't quite work. But if I get somewhere and I just start moving and breathing and letting the environment, all that other stuff about like, where's this bottleneck and what's going on, and the not thinking about it is where I get those big breakthroughs. And that's just been a consistent practice from day one, because again, I got shocked into it early that quality of life is a super important conversation. And, I hope that nobody else ever has to go through that kind of a moment of stress to get to the same realization. But you need to put aside the time and the space where you're not working to actually get your best work done.
Yeah, Jacob, being out there in nature, I can see how that can be a serene scene. What would you say is the most inspirational scene for you? Is that on a lake up there in the mountains? If it's in the trees, on a summit? Where would you say you saw your most clarification out there in nature?
I had one answer until you asked that very last sentence, like the clarification thing. Because really, it's those moments where there's that little bit of struggle and things aren't going right. The summit's a beautiful spot, but those 15 times on the way up where you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? This is hard. Those kind of crucible moments where you actually have control over it, right? Because you can stop, you can turn around, you can go home. This is not like taking risk of life and limb. But that's the stuff that really teaches you who you are. And so I've been saying for, 10 or 15 years that the mountains are my church. But when I moved out here, I also started doing stand-up paddleboard, because water has been one of those things that was always a bit of a challenge to me. And so like doing deep crossings and going out into the middle of big lakes and like places where I'm just not comfortable and at home like I am in the mountains has been a really good teacher as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I always ask those types of questions because it's important for the viewers to understand he does all this stuff for his work and to help others, but he still has his own life. And we always like to get deep into that as well. So I definitely appreciate you sharing. Jacob, if someone that is watching today has questions about how they can get help from 820 Media, they can learn more about AI, or just simply learn more from you, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so every single front end that we provide includes a booking link or a booking calendar or a booking funnel. So, whether it's our AI lead generation, which is leads.8020.media, whether it's the AI agents, which is agents.8020.media, whether it's the B2B growth partner, which is grow.8020.media, it all starts with a conversation. Any place that you can go and buy something, you'll see a link to book a call and talk first, because I want people to understand what it is they're acquiring and how it actually works for them. Too much stuff out there, in my opinion, is just kind of sold in the scroll and sold with the magic beans version, and just like 2 clicks and you're done and you'll never have to lift a finger or think again. And all this stuff takes a certain amount of responsibility. So, anywhere you go in our ecosystem, we always start with that conversation.
Yeah, I think that is a great practice, because if you're not talking with them and learning about them, how are you going to provide a solution or get that correct process for them if you don't know anything about them? So thank you so much for sharing that. And as we get ready to wrap up the show, we always honor our guest by giving them the last word. So can you please look into the camera and tell the people something good?
Yeah, honestly, like on the business side of things, you must become obsessive about your customer journey to win. But when you do that, you're focusing on their wins too.
Awesome. That customer journey has been important, and seeing this is an important thing for you, like a primary objective to make sure they're having a good time. And thank you so much for coming on the show with us today, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I really appreciate your time and, of course, just your skill as a host.
Thank you so much. And to everyone that is watching, be kind and thanks.